Hello, Jana Leon here. This is for EDAM 5336. This is practicum video number 1 over PLC. And with me today I have the Social Studies Department.
Sarah Washington.
And John Kalinowski.
Okay, today I wanted to bring you guys in and talk about my practicum proposal project for PASL. I've decided to do Senate STEMs for our ECRs campus-wide for our kids. And my plan involves taking the 29% special education students that received approach on their ECR. I'm trying to bring that up to 40%, and I do believe that we can do that if we give them Senate STEMs and expose them to Senate STEMs. So by the time they take the STAR, they are going to be well equipped and they know what's going to give them partial credit or full credit on their exam. So today's meeting is going to be about what can we do as a social studies department to help create Senate STEMs in our class that will help our kids, those 29%, reach 40%. So our next unit is culture. So up here on the board we have the template or the graphic organizer that the ELAR coaches and the ELAR department created, and the toolkit. So we need to think about our next unit, which is culture, and then following that is government. So we are going to be working on some Senate STEMs that we can place in here to prepare for our ECRs. Okay, so these are the Senate STEMs that were created that we just post on our wall. So anytime we're doing writing, our English language learners or our hesitant writers, they have a tool to be able to compose a response. The first one is the cause of blank was blank. The effect of blank was blank. Blank led to blank. The most likely reason for blank was blank. The similarities, using this Senate STEM and then using the differences, having to explain the differences and similarities between two things and why. This reminds me of blank. I was surprised that blank. Blank wanted blank because blank, and blank is important because blank. Okay, those are the overall social studies STEMs that were created. So let's go ahead and start working together and see if we can come up for some that are on culture. Do you guys have?
Just the STEMs I feel like lead us to have our ECR for this unit be about cultural diffusion, because it's something they really need to understand for social studies, but I think it leads itself to a good writing piece. We can do how we can start with how culture spreads, and then cultural diffusion is an effect of trade, war, whatever. So I feel like we can almost use these. We could really use all of them, which would be a little excessive, but I think it'd be easy to plug in for cultural diffusion.
Okay, so the topic is going to be cultural diffusion. Okay, yeah. And this first box is a thesis, yes. Right? So we'll put thesis.
And I think maybe we could do that. Maybe we could say something like, what are some examples of cultural diffusion that you have witnessed or learned about in class?
As the prompt?
Yeah, as the prompt.
Okay.
And then that kind of gives them some direction on what they want to learn about. What they want to write about, excuse me.
So what are some examples?
Yeah, and through that McDonald's lesson that we're gonna do, that's gonna be one they can refer back to, but I think they'll be able to pull from that lesson to think of like other restaurants and, you know, other activities that they do every day.
And the good thing is we're so diverse that some of these kids have actually been on the other side of the world, where their home countries are, and they can give real world examples of cultural diffusion, saying, in my hometown, you ate this, we all eat this here. So they're kind of comparing how the differences between certain aspects of culture where I'm from compared to where I live now. They can use that as well too. It's
So-
real world, real life.
So like, I know the ELAR teachers and with the ELAR background, when they say they have to cite actual evidence, how would they cite a personal experience like that?
I would say like, I mean, I guess when I taught reading, I would call them like anecdotes.
Okay.
To make, like, I would tell them if you have an anecdote, then you could just refer, like, this reminds me of a time when I experienced, would be something they could pull from, and it kind of just makes it sound a little bit more, you know,
Personal.
yeah, a little more higher level than like one time when I, or whatever, so, I think this reminds me of, would be an okay anecdote
Okay.
tie-in. I think for the thesis, I mean, I know that we usually don't wanna start with the cause of, but we could maybe talk about, you know, the cause of, or the effect of having so many people from around the world in our community, you know, has led to cultural diffusion. That could kind of be like a guided thesis, maybe.
Maybe start off with a sentence like before, like an introduction, and then the next sentence of the thesis could go into some examples of cultural diffusion that I've noticed
In my life,
in my life is
This,
blank
and this.
and blank.
yeah.
Okay,
Then go into
so
more detail.
what was the first statement that you said, the lead in?
Let's see, maybe the effect of having a multicultural classroom.
You could say, yeah, the effect would be kids are from such a diverse background that some have personal experiences with cultural diffusion.
Yeah.
Or they've experienced different cultures.
So the effect of a multicultural classroom
In a diverse.
has led us to experience cultural diffusion in our lives at Steenbergen Middle School, or, you know, something. And I think that since we're dealing with the sped population, kind of providing a sentence with that format as we go through the different units, so it almost becomes like part of their, like, when I know when I
Yes.
start my sentence, I'm gonna start it with this, you know, stem
And
or
starting it
whatever.
off early with these techniques, hopefully by the spring,
Yeah,
they will have it down. So experiences cultural diffusion, and
you know, our daily lives at or maybe they could finish that part of the sentence,
That
so
could
it's
be-
a
that could be the
little,
stem.
yeah.
That would almost be a stem in its own.
Yeah, the effect of multicultural classroom has led us to experience cultural diffusion, and then blank, and we could just tell them, you know, you need to fill in where, at, you know, in our community, or at Steenbergen, within my group of friends,
Or
or
at home,
Yeah.
or
something like that.
in my immediate family. extended.
some examples.
That could be another stem right there.
Yeah, some examples of cultural diffusion are blank and blank. And I'm just thinking like onto government, you know, some examples of a limited government are blank and blank. I mean, I feel like that's gonna be one they can definitely tie to, so maybe we should like put a star by that, like this is gonna be one that leads our thesis statement no matter what we're talking about. Some examples of that part could kind of be just how they write their thesis every time.
Perfect. So, some examples of limited government are blank and blank, and then some examples of unlimited government are blank and blank. Okay.
Yeah, and we could do, and even on to economy, you know, an example of
primary industry
Right.
or
Secondary,
a mix.
tertiary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that some examples maybe should just be their thesis statement regardless of what they're writing on, because it can be tweaked for whatever, even whatever genre they're writing into.
Okay, awesome. Any, like, I think if I'm understanding it correctly, this is their first idea, so their first blank, and this is their second blank. So, this would be like the, first example
Evidence.
of cultural diffusion.
Yeah, and I always tell, my writers that when we're doing our reasons, we should start with some sort of, introductory clause. And I know when we were writing last year with our advisory classes, I basically said, these are the ones you should use every time unless something better pops into your mind in that moment. Like this will be your fallback if you can't think of something. So if we can kind of do some example of type stems that would always go into our, reason one, reason two, rather than saying the first reason.
Yes.
The second reason is, so I'm just looking at these stems.
Or it could be like they fill in their blank, like blank is an example of cultural diffusion that I've seen in blank.
Yeah, and then maybe something as simple as in addition for the second one.
Okay.
Just better transition
In
words.
addition
To
to
Blank.
blank,
comma,
comma,
I have noticed, I've seen cultural
witness
diffusion, witness would be a good word rather than,
bigger words.
seen.
yeah,
I have witnessed.
yeah. And I think too, like another thing we could do to help them too is underline words like witness and be like, when I read your writing, I always see you write, I know, I have seen.
Right.
This is just a better way to say I've seen, that elevates your writing
Mm-hmm.
with just one simple word.
Right. It makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
So highlight that academic or that,
I was saying your more impressive vocabulary.
Right.
okay,
School words.
highlight more impressive.
Yeah. I always say like this is junior high ready, or this is high school ready.
Right. Instead of elementary where it's I
Yeah.
saw, I
Yeah.
did, I do.
I always try to tell them like, let's leave those words down the street because all the elementary
Yeah.
schools are down the street.
Right.
And
And it's good practice for when they're in junior high and high school. It'll sound better as they're getting older.
Yeah, and I know that one thing that's nice is that we're not only setting them up for success here, but I hear, Max, my 8th grader, he still thinks with this pattern and with this layout, so,
And it
I
helps
feel
them
like
too,
that's
that's the way they speak too, not just how they write, but how they talk.
yeah.
They're using words that they would normally write with instead of just well, I did this, I saw this, I see this. Now it's, I witnessed this the other day, it really
That's
caught
true.
my eye, and it just makes them a better speaker as well as a better writer.
Yeah, for sure. Good point.
Okay. Blank is an example of cultural diffusion in my community, and it's followed by, in addition to blank, I have witnessed cultural diffusion,
Blank.
blank.
Just to keep it easy. And then thinking ahead for government, blank is an example of limited government in whatever country,
Okay,
and then in addition to democracy in America, I have learned about, constitutional monarchy in England or something, if they're writing. So I feel like these are gonna be easy to
It's interchangeable.
just tweak, like,
and these are just like one sentence, correct? And over here, that's when you're citing,
Sure.
Yeah,
correct, or you're
evidence.
providing your evidence,
Yeah.
okay.
and I think for our SPED population, that's enough. For a GT population, I would say maybe we would add one more sentence to bring us into our reasoning, but I think for our SPED population, that
That's pretty good.
is, that's impressive writing in general,
Yes.
and it keeps it doable for them.
Right.
This
Doesn't
will at
overwhelm
least
them.
get them that partial credit.
Yeah.
Because I think one of our students last year just wrote like 2 sentences down and got partial credit. But if I want to bring that 29 up to a 40%, we're hoping that we can at least get them to do this sentence and explain 1 sentence where they got it from.
Yeah.
So,
You know, that one thing too, we could probably do with our SPED population that really worked in the past when I taught lower levels, like elementary, 4th grade specifically, is I would give them sticky notes. And for some reason I don't know if they made them feel confident or whatever, but like each box got a sticky note, so it seemed less daunting than this whole sheet of paper. And so I would give them color-coded sticky notes. And it also kind of helped them remember, like, okay, purple goes here, that's my reason. Yellow goes here, that's my evidence. And yellow is the only one I have to write on the back of. I only have to write on the front of the purple. Because most of our SPED population does have graphic organizers as a
supplement.
Yeah.
And all that.
So I think like maybe pulling out the sticky notes might be helpful, you know, aid in bringing that score up. Just, I think it just, you know,
And the good
gives them
news-
some confidence, and that's half the battle.
Right, and the good part is they can use it on any testing too. They can easily get that sticky note from the teacher and say, here's your sticky notes, here. Then it kind of gets them in that mindset where this is what Miss Washington taught me, this is what I need to put here. And it kind of puts a stem in it on its own really, because it gets them kind of started with their writing.
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let's see here. We've got the body of the first paragraph, second paragraph. What are some sentence stems that we can use to provide or cite that evidence?
And it,
Besides, I know this because
Yeah.
in this source.
I know like one problem I saw watching them write last year is that they would just repeat the reason.
Yes.
And that's like, you need to tell me more about the reason. So maybe just something simple that reminds them of that need. Like, I can't reword it, I've got to tell more. So if we can think of a stem that would kind of force them to do that without them feeling forced,
Right.
you know?
Explain why. And sometimes it helps to give them as a practice, go, who's your favorite athlete? Why? Because this and this. Or, you know, he does this. You're explaining why. You're giving me evidence as to why he's your favorite athlete. Okay, so now let's look at this. This is cultural diffusion. This is an example of this. This is an example of culture or government. Why? Tell me why. Go into detail like you did with that personal thing that you enjoy because you love it. You can explain it in and out. Now let's talk about this. Use your vocab, use your terminology. Explain why.
Yeah.
And then once they get it talking and they're speaking it, then they can kind of take those and kind of try to formulate a sentence with the words they're saying. Because sometimes, like I said, it's easy to say it than it is to write it. So say it out loud. And then as you're saying it out loud, kind of start playing with those words and go, you know what, I could kind of make this sentence or do this sentence. And then you can kind of tweak and modify from there. So
Yeah.
sometimes it helps to make that real world connection that they like. It's like, what do you love? What's your favorite one? Okay, why? Give me evidence why that one's the best. Well, because they have this, this, and this. Okay, well now let's talk about that with what we're talking about.
And I think like doing like a talk, read, talk, write,
Yeah, just
kind of like when we do this, we'll always do like a talk, read, talk, read, talk, write. Like, let's do our introduction, our thesis today. Talk about it with your person. Maybe write it with dry erase on your desk. You know, help each other make it better. Put it on your sticky note, stick it down, we're done. So they feel like it's a quick process,
right.
but they're having that conversation time too, so.
So maybe something, I don't know if it's too simple or not, but trying to tell more or to explain more, maybe we could put blank is an example of cultural diffusion because,
Yeah.
or I mean, that's kind of restating this right here, but
that
you
might get them
almost
moving.
have to.
But even for the special ed kids, like you said, something that's simple and not so overwhelming might help them be able to cite that evidence. Well, this is one example because this, and this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's correct information. So,
And I don't think it's necessarily wrong to allow them
restate.
with one or the other, like, you know, to always, like, is an example of.
At least, yeah, because if you give them 1 out of 2, that's pretty good. It's just then it's like, all right, now we did the simple way. Now let's step it up just a minute. Let's try a little bit different one. Don't do it for both.
And that kind of leads, so that will kind of naturally let them explain, like, you know, eating at McDonald's or whatever they're, you know, or
Your favorite board item at
dancing,
McDonald's.
you know, dancing at, or going to quinceañera, or whatever they
Yes.
choose. And is an example of diffusion in my community. Quinceañeras are an example of cultural diffusion because it mixes Mexican culture with American culture. And then we could be like, you know,
What are,
this reminds me of a time I went to my cousin's and I heard people speaking Spanish, but we were also dancing to American hip hop or
okay,
something like that, you know, so I feel like maybe that will lead
Or
them
even-
into
And
it.
even the food we ate. Some of it was Mexican culture, like the Mexican cuisine, but then
Yeah,
they also had American food that, you know,
Yeah.
they blended multiple things in to kind of really diffuse 2 different cultures together.
yeah, so we could just say like, maybe, like, what did you see, like, use your 5 senses, like, what did you notice there? What did you see there? What did you smell there? What did you taste there? That was an example of the 2 different cultures.
Right.
So they could almost make like a little, you know, T-chart on their desk and be like, what were the 2 cultures you noticed that you just told me you saw in your first sentence, you know, and then make sure you include at least 3 of these
Right. And kind
from
of
each side in your
evidence.
and that might naturally bring them to write at least 2 more sentences.
Right.
So kind of using your 5 senses to like, what did you experience in both of those cultures?
Well, and then the way that you're providing your proof, your evidence.
Yeah.
Because I heard this, I saw this, I tasted that.
Mhm. Yeah. Then we could just say, in addition to, you know, attending the quinceañera, I have also witnessed cultural diffusion, eating at my favorite restaurant.
Or even weddings.
Whatever.
I mean, there's just family reunions. There's birthday parties. Because you know nowadays there's diffusion everywhere, and sometimes they don't even realize it until they're like, wait a minute. Now that you think about it, that last birthday party I took my cousin, we had piñatas, but we also had birthday cake or something that was completely 2 different cultures, and you didn't even realize it at the time that you were experiencing cultural diffusion even at a birthday party or
Yeah.
family reunions or.
so we can use that same sentence stem at the top for the bottom, for them to use those 5 senses to
Mhm.
explain why that is,
Mhm.
where they were introduced to it,
Yeah.
how it made them feel, so.
Right, like Sarah said, make a chart kind of, and just write down everything you saw, all with your senses. Write down what you experienced at that time.
And you would do that on the sticky notes. The sticky notes, right, are just like the brainstorming, right?
I would usually have them, I mean, we could, but I would usually have them brainstorm, like on their desk or on a piece of paper, and then their sticky notes for the actual sentences. Because then what they do is after they write it, like I would have them put the sticky notes in that graphic organizer, and then I'd be like, take off the pink. Or usually I think I did green for the beginning one because it was good, like green means go. And I was like, take it, write it, stick it over here, you're done. Now take off purple 1, write it, just copy it, stick it, you're done. And I would have them do their editing and revising right on the sticky notes, so they were just, because a lot of the struggle I think for our sped students is just being done, like, they just don't want to do it. So I was like, but if you start on your desk or a piece of paper brainstorming, move it over to your sticky note, read your sticky note, what, I always call them baby words, like what baby words should you level up? Do you have a comma? So they would edit and revise right on there, and then they would just copy the revised on their lined paper, or they would type, I guess now they type and, and then it's just, they're done, because that's half the battle, it's just, like, to get them started, it's because they just don't want it, it's so daunting.
Right,
But I
it's
feel like
overwhelming.
between this and the sticky notes and the,
And they can even have their peer edit their sticky note and look at it and go, hey,
Yeah.
what do you think? Look at this one. Okay, did you remember to put a comment? Oh, thanks. Okay, let me look at yours. Okay, make sure you put your punctuation and capitalize that letter. It's a proper noun.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Well, I think that it would be so easy because they can answer these 3 right here and get like, a 1, but if they answer all these boxes in a complete thought, that is a 10 right off the bat for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Like on the test. So
And it's a way of chunking it too, because like you said, it's so overwhelming looking at this big thing and thinking, oh God, I gotta start here and do all this. Let me do one piece at a time. Get my sticky notes, get my revising. Boom, one thing at a time. All right, I got this. I remember this. And before you know it, they don't even realize that they're building their ECR, and they're just doing one step at a time. I think that's how we have to look at it. Is just one step at a time. Don't look at the final piece.
I know it would be hard, but that would be cool if we could implement that in every classroom, so they're exposed to that in every classroom that they go to.
Yeah.
So that would
And
be
just
cool.
consistency and.
Conclusions, I think, always restating the claim was also kind of like a comfort, because it's like, oh, I just have to rewrite that sentence in a different way. Like, I've already written it once, let me just rewrite it a different way. So like some examples of cultural diffusion are blank and blank. You could just change it to like, using the word witnessed again, like
Or
that.
experience.
Experience,
or-
that's probably better, experience, like, I experienced cultural diffusion at the Quinceañera and, my favorite restaurant, Japaneros.
Mm.
So you're just taking that sentence and rewording it, and then pulling from this, you're pulling from one of these stems. I was surprised that, or cultural diffusion is important because I think like when we put this, when we have this poster up, maybe put a red, whatever sticky note color we choose for the conclusion. So, I think naturally like pink because it's, over the end stop.
Right, it's kind of the end.
We could just put like stars on this, poster. Like a red star could go by this one. Like you should put this in your conclusion, there's a red star by it. Cultural diffusion is important because it allows us to experience, the cultures of our friends and learn to accept and embrace who they are or something. Just in those words that we naturally use when we talk about culture in the classroom, I think that, hopefully they'll pull from those conversations. And I think that's really good. I think it's helpful.
So as an ELA teacher, is this a good thesis, or is this a good, like an outline? So it's gonna be my goal for us to keep meeting every unit, since we're gonna do an ECR, let's say, every 6 weeks, or I would
think we
hate
could
to,
even,
yeah,
we could even do, like when we go into the, looking at the board, when we go into the actual continents, we could do one of the foundational pieces, and then we also, since we touch in history, do one for the history side too. So we could really do, one for the first 2 6 weeks,
okay.
and then we could go in, add that second, so they're doing 2 ECRs, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th 6 weeks. And then I also think, in addition to this, another way to like boost their ECR is to have them continue to do complete sentence I wanna call them SAR because I'm old, but the short ones, what are they called? Short answer response?
I think it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
short
I think it's
as-
the same
yeah.
thing, yeah, short
I was
answer.
They keep changing names.
So they are, like, do we have an ECR on this test tomorrow, or
We have
an
a short-
SCR?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like, what, if you moved your company, where would you choose to move it and why?
About the corridors.
So the corridors to, make money and have high
Easy to get
populations.
to and,
Yeah, so we could almost like take this as their baseline for,
Mhm.
the short answer response. And be like, how could we make this better? Just to practice like small writing.
Okay,
And then when we do our ECR for culture, be like, remember all those small writings we've looked at? And how impressive we were with how we rewrote them the second time. Like that, let's start at that level for our ECR.
okay.
So, but I think we're setting them up for success, and I really feel like, there's also kids who aren't sped
that's still struggling.
that still struggle with the writing process because they're not avid readers, and this is gonna, I think this tool will help.
I think it's good for
more than-
all pops. I mean,
Yeah.
And GT, everything. I mean, we forget that GT kids still sometimes need that STEM, because once they get that, then they just take off like a bully.
Yeah, they just
You
need a
know,
starting
and
point.
just like the SPED kids, they just may have more trouble with understanding certain bigger words, like the witness and experience and things like that. But I think that once we get those special ed kids started with the STEMs and really going and practicing, they'll get really, really good at it.
Yeah,
And I think that'll really help with the numbers.
yeah, I'm excited for this.
Maybe like in 7th period, I love that initiative that the school is taking, that they want the kids to have like a chapter book with them at all times, and they're implementing that reading, because who was it that said it? I can't remember if it was a guided coalition meeting, but they said, like, if the students see good writing, they're gonna become good writers
Yeah.
as well. So I think, like, even in 7th period, it would be cool, since we have the ELAR kids, we could have them do, like, you know, create a thesis, like, out of their book. Like, we can give them a sentence stem, like, one example or one similarity between my life and this book is this.
Yeah,
And then we can slowly build that in. It would work good for a book study, but
yeah.
But that's
We could do it,
cool.
yeah. I think if we model too, like I always think that, if we model, I feel like it's important to model reading and then struggling through writing for them too. Like if they see adults reading, they'll read.
yes.
And then if they see us take our thoughts from our book to paper, even if it's a struggle for a minute, I think that that's important for them to see us do the whole process as well. So that'd be a good place to do it. is,
Definitely.
Perfect. So the goal is for next PLC, we're gonna get together, we're gonna look at what our next unit is and see if we can come up with just a general one for every year, every different content. So whatever one that we're discussing, if we decide to implement that ECR, we'll already have something, and we can use these consistently every year. And hopefully that 29% goes to 40, and then the next year it goes up to 50. And hopefully we can get these kids to become good writers.
I definitely think you'll have growth from this, just by doing this and implementing it all the time and seeing it in reading class and with us and cub clubs, and I think you'll definitely see some growth with this, and you'll even you'll see him writing better, but you'll see him speaking differently too, I think. Using
Definitely.
some more of the vocabulary and terminology.
Just having this up on the wall, like, you know, when they're responding to a question, it's like use one of the sentence stems.
Well,
Like,
the better they get at it, they won't even need this, because they'll already have the ones that they use, the one that they like, and then it'll get to the point where they won't even need this.
yes.
So if they're testing it in a room that doesn't have it, they'll remember it and go, you know what, I remember Miss Leon's class, this was a STEM I used, she liked it, it was working for me, I'm gonna go with that.
Here.
It's the more they see it.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for meeting with me today. I've got to meet with ELAR, I've got to meet with science, I have to meet with math, and we have to come up with some sentence stems for their class. Because the goal is that everybody is creating ECRs using sentence stems. So if you don't mind, Miss Washington, can I take pictures of this? Okay. Thank you guys very much.
Thank
and I
you.
look
Thank you.
forward to getting all of these posters made and making our kids wonderful readers and writers.
Great,
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Our cultural diffusion right here. Sorry, Dr. Castilla, I know you can't read backwards. If you can, you are thebomb.com.
Here's our sentence stem.
And this is the template, the ECR format. And over here, these are our sentence stems used for social studies that are posted in all of our classrooms. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Gallardo. I look forward to hearing from you tomorrow for our post-conference. This goes along with my PASL assignment number 1 of bringing that special education population from a 29% on their ECRs all the way to a 40%. And I do
believe that the implementation of this cross-curricular using these sentence stems created by teachers that are leaders in their discipline will increase that to a 40% by the end of the year. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.